Good morning, and it's so good to have you with us this morning again. And if you are tracking with us with our reading program through the Wayfinding Bible, you would be on week 2 right now. And my reading for today is actually going to come out of Monday's reading, which was Genesis chapter 9. I'm just going to take a few verses, starting at verse 12. It says this, and God said, "I'm giving you a sign, my covenant with you and with all living creatures for all generations to come. I've placed my rainbow in the clouds. It is the sign of my covenant with you and with all the earth. When I send clouds over the earth, the rainbow will appear in the clouds, and I will remember my covenant with you and with all living creatures. Never again will the floodwaters destroy all life. When I see the rainbow in the clouds, I will remember the eternal covenant between God and every living creature on earth." And then God said to Noah, "Yes, this rainbow is the sign of the covenant I'm confirming with all the creatures on earth." It's a great passage of scripture. It comes to us directly after the flood. The flood has destroyed everything. There's sin in the world, and God brings this flood. He saves, he brings Noah and his family and pairs of animals into the ark, and he saves them as water covers and just devastates the earth. As they come out and as life starts again, he makes a covenant with Noah in this situation. The thing that we sometimes do when we read the Bible is we come across concepts that we assume we understand exactly what they mean. In this chapter 9, if you even start from the beginning of the chapter, you're going to see this word covenant continually coming up over and over again. I find this word covenant seems to permeate our churches. We talk about covenants in different kind of contexts. In fact, I even see it kind of in secular institutions or government institutions or civil institutions where people speak about covenant agreements or the covenant of something. And I'm quite fascinated by that, because I sometimes wonder why people will use this word covenant. Can't we maybe just use a word like the contract or the agreement? Why should we use the word covenant? I say this because if you are working with me through the Bible, I'd like you to be thinking about some of the things you read. And when you come across words that you think you know, maybe you should ask yourself, do you really know what they mean? Well, this word covenant, I went to the Lexham Dictionary and Bible Dictionary, and this is what it actually says. It says, contracts and covenants differ in a few areas. In terms of initiation, contracts are made by the exchange of promises, whereas covenants are sworn by solemn oaths. In application, contracts are limited by the terms of the exchange of property. This is yours, that is mine. Well, covenants involve, and this is the important concept, the exchange of life. I am yours, you are mine. Think for a second when you get married, when you did get married, or if you're going to get married, do you enter into a contract with somebody? I think sometimes we have a problem because we think that we're creating a contract within a marriage arrangement. And it always fascinates me how it takes time when we realize that actually marriage is not just a contract. It is a covenant. It is something far deeper. We are not giving of our property to one another. We are giving of ourselves to one another. We sometimes try to turn it into a contract. Well, if you do this in the family, I will do that in the family. But if that is the level of the agreement of your relationship, somewhere along the line, you're going to keep drawing lines to try and figure out who's keeping their end of the bargain, who's breaking their end of the bargain. You've degenerated from a covenant to a contract or agreement. Marriage is, in fact, a covenant. We give of our lives. And so he goes on to say, which covers virtually unlimited range of human relations and duties. In terms of motivation, contracts are based on profit, self-interest. Covenants call for self-giving, loyalty, and sacrificial love. Contracts are temporary, while covenant bonds are permanent, even intergenerational. And such distinctions do not imply that covenants are necessarily opposed to contracts, since covenants call both for promise-making and oath sharing. I want you to think about that for a second. And I want you to go back to the passage in Genesis chapter 9. Did you notice something interesting about the agreement? It's not an agreement. The contract. It's not a contract. The covenant that God makes with humanity. What does God expect from humanity in that situation? If you read carefully, you'll notice that God enters into covenant with humanity, which means he chooses to live with humanity. He chooses to engage humanity. He chooses to enter into relationship with humanity. And what does he expect in return? Well, it's not a contract. It's not an agreement. It's a covenant. He expects nothing. What he's saying, it's a one-sided covenant where he says, here I am. I'm committing to loving humanity. Now, I'll leave you with this thought. I think there's a lot you can think about, but just this one thought. What does that tell us about God? What does that tell us about the nature of God? The sacrificial nature of God. His Son dying on the cross. Giving. What does he expect in return? God gives. He chooses to live in relationship with us, giving of himself. Seldom expect something back, but he does create the opportunity for us to choose him back. We serve a loving, a beautiful, and a gracious God who chooses to enter into covenant with us. Be blessed. Find God. Discover the love of God. Discover the beauty of relationship with God.